Hi, this is Dr. Cyrus Veil, child psychologist, and I'm here to talk with you today about kind of middle of the road, kind of not so big of a deal misbehaviors such as things like being hassled a lot, kids who swear, kids who, use like toilet humor or something like that, maybe too much, things like that, being overly silly, overly sarcastic, kind of talking back. In general, we're just going to kind of talk about hassling behaviors, or maybe even more technically, we could talk about them as kind of like low-level, socially reinforced misbehaviors, which sounds awfully technical. What's tricky is that whenever we have misbehaving kids, there can be all kinds of different motivations and reasons for the exact same misbehavior. So let's take a quick example. So if we had, say, Bobby, who is 8 years old and is primarily motivated by being able to just do what he wants to do. He doesn't like to do stuff that he doesn't like to do. Kind of sounds like me. So Bobby could be motivated when he's being defiant about being asked to do his homework or to do chores. He could be engaging in things like being snarky or sarcastic, or maybe calling his parents' name or something like that out of a motivation to escape a demand. That's actually a relatively common motivation. Whereas Sally, let's say his 9-year-old sister, maybe this young lady is a little bit more socially motivated, which is to say she's very motivated by interacting with others, getting praise and attention from others, and things like that. So Sally, maybe if she feels like her parents are not paying enough attention to her, maybe she comes up and starts to become snarky and sarcastic or overly silly or kind of hassling, engaging in fairly similar behaviors in a sense as her brother, but the motivation is entirely different. And so our way of intervening with those kids needs to be often pretty different. So let's think this through. Let's go back to Bobby, and let's hope I'm remembering the names Bobby and Sally. Yeah, I think I got it. So with Bobby, when we sit down to get him to do his homework, and he says, "No, I don't want to, you're a jerk," and starts, "You're a poopy pants," or whatever. I've heard kids say much, much, much worse than that, but for the sake of, I don't know what, decorum on the channel, we'll stick with that. "You're a jerk, you're a poopy pants." We would want to be very careful about getting into a lot of what most parents and most adults do in this kind of circumstance, which is a lot of kind of bicker back or kind of like lay down authority in circumstances like that. It's understandable to be kind of bothered by that, and it's kind of understandable that we have this instinct to be like, you can't talk to me that way, I'm going to discipline you or punish you or something like that. With Bobby, we want to be really, really careful. So if we said to him, "Oh, you need to go to your room, young man." Now, if we're trying to get him to do homework and his primary motivation for being snarky and sarcastic with us is that he doesn't want to have to do his homework, you can see how we're running into a bit of a problem here. Because if he gets to just go sit down in his room by himself, maybe he's not doing something that we describe as particularly fun, like, playing on his Switch or watching TV. But he still gets to, avoid the homework, I guess. He gets to escape the demand. So there, we'd want to focus a lot more on kind of like circumnavigating his snarkiness and kind of staying kind of gently but firmly tethered to the task that we want to get him to complete. With Sally, coming back to sister, we would want to especially be careful about intervening with her, maybe calling us a jerk or a poopy pants when she seems like she's not getting enough attention from us. And by the way, as an aside on attention, when I say attention, I don't mean that in this like kind of petty way. Getting attention and interaction from others is a very critical motivation to a lot of people, and it's a very powerful and important thing. So please don't use that or read that in a dismissive way. It's very understandable to want attention. But coming back to Sally. So here she is kind of hassling us. She's pushing our buttons. She's maybe being snarky and sarcastic. We especially wouldn't want to be going, "You can't talk with me like that, young lady, and we're going to have this big talk about why that's rude. You can't do that. No, because what's happening is we're giving her at least a big reaction and a lot of attention attention and interaction, which is likely, if we're right about her being socially motivated, it is likely to reinforce her behavior more, which basically, for her, she'd rather have some kind of attention and interaction, even if it's kind of negative or stressed out, than no attention and interaction at all. And that's true of a lot of people and kids who are very socially motivated. So we also would want to be careful about a big intervention like you go to your room and be by yourself. I mean, there might be a logic to it because you're going, well, then I'm definitely not giving her any attention. Sure, but if she's really, really, really desiring attention and we do that, all that's going to happen is that her desire for attention is going to be a lot more. And so we want to be thinking about a lot more moment by moment interventions with her. Bottom line is, with both kids, when you're dealing with, say, the example of a kid who's being snarky and sarcastic, maybe kind of rude, maybe calling names, but isn't necessarily engaging in a big ticket misbehavior like overt defiance or tantrums or aggression or something like that, we want to go kind of one of two ways. We can either be kind of, kind of withhold our attention, kind of. I don't mean like, send the kid to their room for 3 hours, but just kind of like not really engaging with them too much. And what that might look like might be like, oh, geez, I think that there's a young lady here who really wants me to talk to her, but I'm really waiting for her to be friendly. Oh, hi, Sally. Now you're being friendly. Let me talk to you. Or with Bobby, and I still am convinced that I'm forgetting those names. It's a little different. I mean, we'd want to skirt around, basically something like, we say to Bobby, hey, it's time to do your homework. And Bobby goes, well, you're a jerk and I don't want to have to do my homework and I hate my teacher. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to kind of also be kind of indirect and kind of playful, but come right back to the thing that I want Bobby to do. Like, oh my gosh, that sounds intense and important. Yeah, okay, so let's talk about that once you've got your homework done. What's the first thing that you need to do? It's not my intention to invalidate Bobby. Bobby might have some very important concerns about homework and school and us and how we handle homework and his teacher, whatever. That's important. But what we want to be careful about doing is allowing Bobby to use kind of arguing about this and pontificating and whatever about all of his concerns about homework as a way of avoiding doing his homework. So it gets kind of complicated. You want to be able to think in the moment, and then it's also fine to kind of take a step back and be like, wow, he really frequently is pretty upset about doing his homework. Maybe there's some concerns there, because that's another thing as an aside that's easy to kind of forget about, is that kids very frequently, when they're misbehaving a lot, they've got things that are concerning them, bothering them, stressing them out, that they're having a hard time knowing how to address, or in many cases, they're kind of powerless to address. Because it's good to remember that being a kid is, in many respects, to be almost completely and totally powerless in comparison to the adults. I'm not saying it shouldn't be that way or that it should be that way. It just kind of is. But it's easy to kind of miss that. Now with Sally, thinking about underlying needs, maybe it's good for us to think about, hey, dang, we adults in this circumstance have been really busy this last week, and we've had we had to cancel kind of the special time that we scheduled to hang out with Sally, because that's really important to her, and that's a good thing to do in general as a parent. But we need to notice, like, wow, she really hasn't gotten a lot of attention, and maybe it's okay for me to just kind of like just understand that she's signaling us a need, and she needs a lot of attention. Because sometimes it's easy for us to get really caught up in this kind of like, no, where we've got a minor misbehavior, and so we need to get really kind of focused on it and really upset about it and things like that, when often it's legitimate just to view minor misbehaviors as signals that there's some kind of need that needs to be addressed. So managing kids' behavior can be really, really complicated, and I'm hoping that this video kind of doesn't discourage anyone, but indicates how complicated behavior can really be. And it certainly is not as simple as like misbehavior, punishment, behavior goes away. Believe me, if it were that simple, we would have basically no misbehaving kids. But bottom line is, kids are often motivated by many different things, and it's important for us to slow down as the adults and try to think through what's really going on here. How does this kid seem to work? What needs does this kid seem to have? What seems to motivate this kid? What are the effects of the things that I'm trying to do to deal with this issue? Because very often people kind of use the tools that their parents kind of gave them, or that society at large, I guess, gives them, without a lot of really looking and seeing whether or not it seems to be helping or not helping so much. So at any rate, if you found this video to be useful, please do consider clicking the subscribe button down below. You could also consider giving me a thumbs up if it was especially useful. And if it was really, really useful, you might consider smacking this bell notification thing that's somewhere, I don't know, down there or something, that will let you know when my next video goes live. We'll catch you in the next one.